Sometimes we're on the mountaintops and sometimes we're in the valleys. God loves us just as much when we're in the valley as he does when we're on the mountaintop, because we're still his children. I know that I'm the child of my Father no matter how I feel. No matter how I feel, whether I feel blue or whether I feel full of courage, I'm still my Father's daughter. I still have the heritage of my family. And so it is with my Heavenly Father. No matter whether I feel blue and discouraged or whether I feel on top of the world, I am still the child of the Heavenly King. Sometimes we feel kind of blue, and we feel kind of depressed. Or did you ever feel that way? I wonder. Maybe you haven't. Sometimes we feel like we're not being looked after as nicely as we might have been. The other day, a man drove up the car in front of the house, and he sat in the car and honked the horn and honked the horn, and finally his wife came out, putting on her gloves, and she opened the door and crawled in the car and pulled the door to. And then she turned to him and she said, "You're not as gallant as you were when I was a girl." He said, "No, and you're not as buoyant as you were when I was a boy." Life has a way of sagging. We have a way of kind of giving down. And the first sag is right here. And when we get this sag right here, why, we kind of get a sag all over. And we lose our buoyancy. Now, if we gals could all retain the buoyancy we had when we were 16, that would be wonderful. And I'm sure that then our husbands would be very eager to open the car door and put us in. But I'm plenty capable of opening the door and getting out. And I usually do it. And we join each other on the sidewalk and run along and have a happy time. But it's a beautiful thing to retain the buoyancy of life, and it's a beautiful thing to retain all of those lovely courtesies. But sometimes, life kind of gets drab, and our husbands forget to do all the little fine courtesies for us, and that's all right. That's all right. We know that in their hearts they love us, and that's the important thing. My husband doesn't pull out my chair for me at the table unless we have company, and then he does. But by the time I get the meal on the table, I guess he figures I'm able to pull out my own chair. And so it is with life. We learn to take it in stride, and we learn to do the things that are necessary and to live on the run. A lot of us do. But sometimes we get this kind of sag, and then we kind of go down in the mouth. There is a psalm in here that seems to refer to that sort of a feeling. It's the 116th Psalm, and I think it's a good one to read sometimes when you're feeling kind of blue. It begins with an optimistic note. "I love the Lord because he's heard my voice, the voice of my supplication. I love him no matter how I feel." And then it goes on to say, "Because he hath inclined his ear to me, therefore will I call on him as long as I live." "The sorrows of death encompassed me, and the pains of hell got hold of me, and I found trouble and sorrow." Is there anyone who has lived 40 years who has not faced death and found trouble and sorrow? Life repeats itself. And each generation lives through the things which former generations have lived through. But the psalmist goes on and said, "Then called I upon the name of the Lord. O Lord, I beseech thee, deliver my soul." Isn't it wonderful to know when to go when the sorrows of death encompass you and you are troubled and oppressed? Then I knew where to turn," says the psalmist. "Then called I upon the Lord. O Lord, I beseech thee, deliver my soul." And he must have gotten deliverance because he goes on to say, "Gracious is the Lord and righteous. Yea, our God is merciful. The Lord preserveth the simple." Isn't that nice? I'm so glad. It gives me hope. The Lord preserveth the simple. You don't have to be exceedingly smart for the dear Lord to look after you. It seems like he looks after the simple more tenderly than after the great wise ones. The tenderness of the Lord. The Lord preserveth the simple. I was brought low, and he helped me. Return unto thy rest, O my soul, for the Lord hath dealt bountifully with thee. And then the 12th verse. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits toward me? I will take the cup of salvation. I will call upon the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows unto the Lord now in the presence of his people. That's what I'll do. I might have felt a little down in the mouth, but I'm going to join his people and praise the Lord. You know that's a wonderful thing to do if you're feeling a little bit blue. Get up and get out and join his people. Don't join the people who are opposing the Lord and running here and there in places of amusement. Join his people in giving praise to the Lord in the place of worship. That's the best way I know to come up and out and over a little spell of the blues. Now let's look at this 12th verse of the 116th Psalm. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits unto me? Now some people might say, why should I render anything to the Lord? The world owes me a living. I didn't ask to be born. Well, there's nobody here like that, of course. But if there should be, we might say to that one, indeed you didn't, my dear. You probably had less to do about being born than anything that you can think of. Who was it who had to do with your being born besides your earthly parents? Who was it that put the spirit into your mortal body? Was it not the Eternal who is life himself? And who was it that decreed that you should be born in the United States of America or in some other civilized country? Have you ever considered that? Who was it that allowed the personality, which is yourself, to be born into a civilized country in the United States of America or some other place from which you came to this good land? This land of plenty, this land where we have the privilege of worshiping God according to the dictates of our conscience. This land of opportunity, this land of religious opportunity, this land of educational opportunity. Why did God allow us to be born here? There are millions and millions and billions of people on the face of this earth that are not so fortunate as we. What if you had been born in the heart of Africa someplace in a headhunting tribe? Well, couldn't it have been possible that the soul, the spirit, the personality, which is you, might have been born into a body over there somewhere? Why weren't you? Who are you going to thank that you weren't except God himself? What if you had been born an untouchable in the country of India? What opportunity would you ever have had of making any progress or of getting out of that untouchable state? Those who do the scavenger work of the country and who are despised so that the upper class will not allow their shadow to fall upon them. So unclean are they considered to be. And if you're born an untouchable, you stay an untouchable till you die. And there's nothing you can do about it. Why weren't you born an untouchable in India, I wonder? What have you done that's so wonderful to rate being born in a civilized country? What if you, a girl child, had been born in some of the countries where women are little more than chattel? What if you had been born in the Muslim country where the women wear the veil and hide away someplace in secret places? and just live for the convenience and the satisfaction of men and to rear the children and nothing else. To work and cook and wait on them and then put a veil on your face and never go outside the compound. What if all you girl children had been born there? What if I had been born there? Oh, my goodness sakes a days. When I think of the possibilities that might have been mine as an individual being born someplace else, what shall I render unto God who gave me the privilege of life? Who gave me the privilege of life in the United States of America. I should be so grateful for that I should never wait for the car door to be open for me. My goodness, how glad I should be for the privilege and the opportunity of being free, a free citizen in a free country, a free individual, a woman who has the right of franchise, the woman who has equal status with men in practically all areas of life in these United States of America. What shall I render unto God for all of these benefits to me? Sometime when you're feeling blue, read this psalm, will you? And stop at the 12th verse and ponder over it and go over it and seek your mind and your heart and see what all you can find for which you can give thanks to the Lord. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits to me? What can we give thanks for this morning? Are you able to see? I imagine that most of you have your eyesight. We may wear lenses. That's all right. Our vision gets far away as we get older, and it's normal for a person of 50 to wear lenses. That's perfectly all right. And if you have been so blessed, like Francis Cole, that you don't need to wear them, now I don't need to wear them except to read this nice fine print, but it's normal that a person 50 years old should wear lenses to read fine print. If the Lord has blessed you so you don't need them, thank him. That's wonderful. But you're able to see this morning, aren't you? Oh, let's give thanks to the Lord for the ability to see. How wonderful it is on a morning like this to look out and see the glory of the sunrise. How glorious it is to look out and see the landscape, to see these beautiful trees and their branches, and to feel the promise that is deep in these trees, that when spring comes again, the leaves will come out on the trees. A symbol of recurring life and of life everlasting. How beautiful it is to see beautiful flowers. How wonderful it is to see the faces of the people who love us and people whom we love. Isn't it wonderful to see the faces of little children, to see children playing, to ride through the country and to see the beautiful hills and the fields and all the glory of the earth, as Rhoda led us in singing this morning, God who touches earth with beauty, make me lovely too. Oh, I think that's such a beautiful thing. And when morning gilds the skies, those were such perfect songs for a morning meditation. And we're just in a perfect mood for lifting our hearts to God in gratitude this morning. How wonderful it is to see the glory of God in the earth that he has made. How wonderful it is to come into a sanctuary and to see the things which lift up our hearts toward God and toward worship. To see. Then I imagine all of you are able to hear. To hear. How glorious it is to be able to hear the sounds of birds. Have you ever gone into the woods in the summer along about 4:30 in the morning and listened to the woods awaken? And hear the birds begin to chirp softly, and then one will chirp over here and another will answer. And pretty soon they get louder and louder until there is a marvelous chorus, a great symphony of songs in the forest as the forest comes awake. Oh, I think that's one of the most marvelous things, to listen to a forest waking as the birds begin to chirp. How great it is to hear it. This past summer, I was in Iowa and Indiana in camps, and they tell me in that country that they can hear the corn grow. Have you ever heard corn grow? Well, they say they can, and it grows so fast in the night that in the good hot nights, and when it gets hot down there, they all smile and say it's good corn weather, so you just don't worry about the heat. But when the corn grows, it must be wonderful to listen to hear the corn growing. I'm going to get out in the cornfield sometime and listen. That's something I'd like to hear. But I've heard under other wonderful things. Have you ever heard the roar of Niagara Falls? Oh, that's a marvelous thing. Have you ever heard the roar of the ocean? Of course you have. You live close enough to it. You're here on these wonderful lakes. You have so many lakes. Have you ever heard the music of a waterfall? The music of a brook as its waters flow over smooth stones. And it just murmurs and trickles and talks to itself, you know, just like little children talk to themselves. Oh, I think a brook talking to itself is some of the sweetest music I ever have heard. How wonderful to hear things. How wonderful to hear the great symphonies. And now when we have our stereos and all of these wonderful machines for playing our music, you don't have to go to New York City and hear them. You can put on a record and stretch out on the couch and just listen. Isn't it wonderful to do that? I love to do that. Put on some of the great symphonies and just stretch out and do nothing but listen and drink it in. And let my soul expand and magnify the Lord because I have ears, because I can hear. How wonderful to hear the voice of someone you love. Sometimes I'm away in a camp and I call home and I hear a voice say, hello. And then I say, hello. And the voice says, oh, sweetheart. Oh, it's wonderful to have someone recognize your voice and to hear the voice of a loved one. To hear the tender intonation of the voice of someone who loves you. To hear the voice of a little child. To hear the voice of someone who trusts you. To hear the voice of someone who calls to you in their need. Oh, isn't it wonderful to be able to hear? To see, and then it's good to be able to smell, too. I have good olfactory nerves, and I expect you do too, and we all like to smell pleasant things. How nice it is to smell flowers in the summertime, the fragrance of flowers. And the flowers are so fragrant when the dew is on them, or just before sundown, when the shadows begin to fall. Then the flowers seem to give off their scent. And it's wonderful to walk in a garden just at twilight and to smell the fragrance of the flowers. To use your sight, to use your hearing, to use your sense of smell, to take in the beauty of all the earth round about you. Isn't that wonderful? Or to go in the kitchen on Thanksgiving morning. Oh, my goodness. Isn't it wonderful to go in the kitchen on Thanksgiving morning and to smell the turkey roasting and sage dressing and maybe pumpkin pies cooling or mince pies or something like that and all the savory things. It's wonderful, isn't it? To go in the kitchen when Mother is boiling down jelly. Isn't that a nice time to go in the kitchen and to smell that good odor of boiling jelly? Do you remember when you used to come home from school and your mother baked bread and it was taken out of the oven about 3:30 and you got in at 4? And, oh, the kitchen was full of the odor of fresh baked bread. Is anybody here old enough to remember fresh baked bread? Good, so am I. And sometimes she'd cut a hot heel and then maybe put some home-churned butter on it and maybe a little jam. Is there anything better than that? The smells of a kitchen, a good homey kitchen where Mother presides and where love fills it. Oh, the odors of a kitchen. The odors of a family table where there's love. And you know, I heard Starr Daily say it first, and I've heard it said many times since. And I believe it's true that food that is cooked in love has more nourishment than food that isn't. And Starr Daily said that a person can cook food in hate and poison the food. And I guess he ought to know. He was in prison a lot of time, and he said that prison grub was poisoned before it came to the table. The hate that prevailed in that prison was so strong that the food was contaminated even while it was being cooked. And he says that when food is cooked in love, that it is so nourishing. And I know that when you eat it in love, it's more nourishing. And if anybody has stomach trouble, you know the best cure for stomach trouble is harmony. 'Tis. That's the best cure in the world for stomach trouble, is to eat your food in love and gratitude and to relish it in happy companionship. And people who do that seldom have stomach trouble. There's something about joy itself that makes us well. Joy, love, and joy bring harmony of life. Did you ever hear of a young girl in love with the most wonderful man in the world, getting ready for her wedding and having her parties where her friends were giving these wonderful parties and the gifts were coming in, and she was all excited, you know, and just bubbling with love? Did you ever know of a girl like that having dyspepsia? I never did. I never knew of a bride having dyspepsia. Did you? No, never did. No, it's when life gets us down that we begin to feel it in our stomachs. And we had with the joy of the Lord. The joy of the Lord shall be thy strength, says the Holy Word. And if you're getting a little down in the mouth, look to your joy. And when your joy begins to bubble, then all of the life within you begins to be radiant and shine forth. If you want good health, find joy. How are you going to find joy? Find joy through love, not expecting it to be given you, but in pouring out love to everybody else. You get so busy doing that, pouring out love to everybody else, and some of that you pour out will stick on the inside, and you will find that you are renewed and remade because of the love which flows out from yourself. Yes, there is joy, there is praise. We should give praise and thanksgiving for our eyes and our ears and our noses, and then for our sense of taste. Do you have a good sense of taste? I imagine most of us do. People who smoke too much lose the sense of taste. People who have never smoked have a keener, finer sense of taste and a finer appreciation of food, and they don't have to use so much condiments and so on to add extra artificial flavor to their food. But isn't it good to taste the good foods? To taste the good foods. There's just one thing better than going into a kitchen on Thanksgiving morning and smelling the food, and that is to gather around the table and eat it. That's better, isn't it? To taste it. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good, said the psalmist. Taste of him. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ruth read us that 103rd Psalm this morning, and there's a verse in there that I love, and I love it in the King James Version because I memorized it that way. It begins, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgiveth thine iniquities, who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases, who satisfieth thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles." And once when I was praying, the Lord gave me this interpretation with that: who satisfieth thy mouth with the things that are good for you. There. Isn't that sensible? Who satisfieth thy mouth with good things, the psalmist said. And God gave me this version: who satisfies your mouth with the things that are good for you. How much stuff do you pour in your stomach that isn't good for you? We all do it, don't we? God bless our stomachs, they take a lot of roughage. They stand up under a lot of abuse. But if we could be satisfied with the things that are good for us, then perhaps our youth would be renewed like the eagles. But we eat everything that's set before us, and we pour on all these condiments and all of this stuff, and we drink these Cokes, and we have to have coffee 16 times a day, and so on and so on. God bless the people who can be satisfied with the foods that are good for them. I'm trying to learn it. I'm having a hard time. But I know some things that are good for me, and I know a few things that aren't. And when you learn something that isn't good for you, I think it's a sin to eat it. It's a sin against your body. It's a sin against your stomach. It's a sin against your mind. It's a sin against your emotions. Because when you put something in your stomach that you know that your stomach is going to rebel against, your body is going to rebel, and your mind is going to get sluggish. And when your mind gets sluggish, your emotions sink low, and you're eating, well, I almost said damnation, but that would be an awful hard word, wouldn't it? But at least you're eating something that's going to bring on a spell of depression. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who satisfieth thy mouth with good things, with the things that are good for your body, and good for your mind, and good for your spirit. And that's so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles. I learned something interesting about eagles and why this verse was written. You know, an eagle doesn't reach the peak of its strength until old age. I didn't know that. I thought everything reached the peak of its performance in its youth, but no, not the eagle. The eagle doesn't come into its own until its old age. Isn't that wonderful? God bless the eagles. I'm looking toward them. And this verse says, who satisfieth thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles. The youth of the eagle comes into its own in its mature years. And an eagle lives a long time, I'm told. We are to be like eagles. We are to mount up like eagles, but we are to eat the things that are good for us so that our youth will be renewed in our older years like the eagles. That's good scripture. That's good preaching. Somebody wrote it in here and had a good mind for it. I love it. I'm so glad it's there. And I thank the Lord for the sense of taste. That's where I got off, wasn't it? So I'll go back on right there. I shall give thanks to the Lord this morning for the ability to taste. And then I shall give thanks for the sense of feel. Oh, how wonderful it is to have the sense of feel. Have you ever watched a blind person feel things? And the wonderful sensitivity of their fingers. We who have all of our other senses lose the sense of feeling a great deal. But you know, little children have the sense of feel. Have you ever known of a little child that loved a certain blanket, and he wanted to take that blanket to bed, and he felt it, and if you took away his blanket, he didn't sleep well, and he cried and fussed, and other blankets didn't feel good, but you give him his own little blanket, and somehow there was a feel to it that comforted him. Some children have a teddy bear, something they like to feel as they go to sleep. Now, little puppies, they crawl up to their mamas, but little children can't crawl up to their mamas. They have to sleep in beds all by themselves nowadays. They used to sleep with somebody, but they don't anymore. That isn't hygienic. So their little hearts yearn for something to touch, something familiar. So they want their own little blanket, or they want their teddy bear, or they want a certain doll or something that feels familiar and makes them to feel at home. How good it is to feel smooth sheets after a hard day. How good it is to feel a warm blanket on a cold night. How good it is to feel a warm shower or a good tub of water to soak in when your bones are tired and exhausted. The feel. How good it is to feel a cool breeze on a hot afternoon. How good it is to feel all of these refreshing and comforting things that are all round about us. Now, these are just your 5 senses. Isn't there enough to give thanks for that you have the ability to use your 5 senses? Try it someday. And see when you get through if you don't have enough to give thanks to the Lord for a good long time, and then you can stand straight and walk out and give thanks to the Lord. What shall I render unto the Lord that I was born in a civilized land? What shall I render unto the Lord that I live in a civilized community? What shall I render unto the Lord for my eyesight, for my ears, for my sense of smell and of taste and of feeling? What shall I render unto the Lord for all of these mercies? But that isn't all. We have these 5 senses, but we have a 6th sense. Every person ever born has this 6th sense. And this 6th sense is the sense of worship. There are no people in all the world without this sense of worship. Everywhere people try to lift up their heads and their hearts and to adore something greater than themselves. God has put it in us. Just as he has given us our 5 physical senses, God has given us this 6th sense of adoration and of worship. What shall I render unto God for the fact that I have this great sense of worship, this desire to adore and to worship and to revere him, if he had not planted it in my heart? How could I have found him if he had not given me this sense, this desire, this deep yearning? St. Augustine has said, O Lord, thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until we find rest in thee. And that's right. He has put a restlessness within us. And there are a lot of people who feel restless and they don't know what it is. They think they want attention. They think they want their husbands to pay them more attention. They think they want the neighbors to be nicer to them. Oh, my dear, there's nothing wrong with you except that your soul is restless. Your soul is restless. Your heart is hungry. And God has put that restlessness in you that you will find him. Without it, you never would. Thank God for the restlessness of spirit. It's like pain. Pain is a great blessing. I knew of a man who was not able to feel pain, and he could just get in the fire and didn't feel it. Why, it's terrible not to be able to feel pain. That's what they tell us. I've never been that way. But when we feel pain, it is a warning that something's wrong and we need to look in and find the trouble and right it. And so the restlessness of our spirits is a symptom like pain. It's a symptom that our hearts are hungry. And our hearts are hungry for something that endures and abides. If you get a little more attention, it isn't going to last forever. It isn't going to satisfy you. The thing which is satisfying is to find your place in the heart of the God who created you and find out really what you are and your place in his kingdom. Thank God for this 6th sense, the hunger of my soul. Reaching out, yearning, yearning, yearning after him. And whenever you get restless, stop and consider and ask yourself, is my soul restless for more of God? Is that what possesses me? Is that what's bothering me? Then I shall seek him more fully. Then I shall find him. And I shall begin to give out to others the thing that I would like to have myself. And when you begin giving out to others the thing you'd like to have, pretty soon you find that you have it. That's the best way in the world to get the thing that you desire, is to begin to give it away. Our souls are restless until they find rest in me. What shall I render unto the Lord for the privilege of divine worship? Were you taken to church when you were a child? How many were taken to church when you were little children? Well, let's all say, thank the Lord. Let's do it out loud. Thank the Lord. Indeed and in truth. Bless the Lord, O my soul, that we had the opportunity of worshiping when we were children, and that was ingrained in us when we were little. When I was a little girl, my father took the whole family in the spring wagon and the surrey, after we got able to have a surrey, and we went to Sunday school and stayed for church, and then sometimes we stayed for class meetings. Anybody here ever attend a class meeting? Anybody been to a class meeting? Well, good, there are 4 of us. That's good. If you don't know what a class meeting is, why, that's where people get together and share their experiences. Really, it was just a prayer group of yesterday, very much like the prayer groups of today. Share the experiences, the joys. But what I started to say was, I was taken to Sunday school and stayed for church when I was little. I'm so glad I was, because I learned something of the feel of the sanctuary. I didn't know what the preacher was saying. I didn't care. I was too little to know. I sat beside my mother, or maybe I lay down on a seat, but I felt something. There was a hush. There was a holiness. There was a reverence there. And I knew it was there. I knew it. My spirit witnessed to the spirit that was present. And the spirits of little children are able to witness to the Spirit of God much more keenly than the spirit of an adult is able to do it. They're so fresh from the infinite, they haven't been away too long, and they can feel His Spirit. Then coming into the sanctuary where the worship service is going on, I felt the Spirit of God, and it was warm and it was good. And I love the feel of a sanctuary. When I'm traveling, I go into churches. I'll start out and find a church, and if there's a door open any place, I'll go in and just sit and look at the worship center and adore and worship. I love to go in old churches, because in old churches there have been so many prayers said that those prayers saturate the walls, and I can feel the spirit of those who have prayed in those churches. I love to kneel at the chancel of old churches where hundreds of people have knelt and their tears have bathed the chancel rail, where babies have been consecrated to God, where people have received the holy rite of baptism, where young people have stood and took the vows of holy matrimony, and when those who have lived until the coronation have had the last rite spoken over their remains. Oh, churches grow so rich with use. And I can feel the Spirit in these great old churches. I love them. And I'm glad that I learned to love that in my youth when I was a child. And I'm glad I learned these psalms when I was a little girl, and I used to play in the sunshine and they'd romp over the grass. Then the evening would come all too soon, and we would come in and have supper, and sometimes we'd just have mush and milk, and that's a good supper if you're really hungry. And then I would be sleepy and I'd want to go to bed, but I always had to wash my feet. Always did. Did you have to wash your feet when you were little? Well, that was before the days when we had 3 bathrooms in every house. But I always had to take a pan of water and a towel and sit on the back step and wash my feet and legs and wipe them. And then we would go in the living room and we would all sit down, and Father would take the Bible and sit down by the center table, and he would read these beautiful old Psalms from the King James Version. I grew up on those. I cut my teeth on those. They were as much my food as the food I ate. Now, I can't quote all of the Psalms according to King James Version, but if you misquote a well-loved one, I can tell it. And I love them. And being brought up on these beautiful Psalms and then the Gospels and the writings of Paul, there's something woven into my being that wakens in joyous response when I hear these read. And when I come into a worship service and hear the Word of God read, it touches something deep within me. And I'm able to worship from the depths of my soul, from the earliest childhood memories on down through the years. And for this I give thanks. What shall I render unto God for the privilege of worship? What shall I render unto God for the desire that he has put within me to worship? What shall I render unto God for the opportunity of satisfying that desire? Of coming together with the people of God in the house of the Lord and there worshiping and finding solace and finding the answer for my soul's need and there finding the great panacea for the blues. For that's what the psalmist talked about. I will come unto the place of the congregation of the righteous, and there I will join my voice with those who love him. And there I shall lift up my heart, and I shall feel his spirit touching mine, and I shall be recreated and made new, and I shall render unto the Lord thanksgiving for all his benefits unto me. Let's thank him. Everyone just sit still now and lift up your hearts and say to him in your hearts all of the deep love and gratitude that you feel welling up in your heart this moment. We love thee, O Lord, and we thank and praise thee because of thy benefits unto us. And as we focus our eyes upon thee and thy loving kindness and tender mercies, we are lifted up into higher dimensions and we rise above our despondency and our blues and our littleness and our selfishness. So help us to find thee. And when we truly find thee, we shall forget ourselves. Because we shall be empowered with thy Spirit, and thus we shall be bigger than ourselves. Because we shall be our own selves, plus the power and the glory of the eternal God. Thank you, Father. Thank you.